Hi everyone. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Student Entrepreneurs Playbook in our channel Startup Go. And let me start with a quote. So, learning to recognize fear is the first step. Convincing yourself that it is okay to take risks is the second. Next thing you know, you will already be doing great things. So this is an amazing quote by an amazing person who I have the privilege to invite as a guest, the first ever guest on this channel. So he's not only an amazing student entrepreneur, he's an amazing friend of mine, and he's an amazing human being. So he's rocking the entrepreneurship world currently right now. So I hope everyone will have an awesome value from this podcast. So let me welcome Rocky Lee, the founder and CEO of Terracotta. Hi, Rocky.
Hi everybody. Shit, my voice cracked.
Yeah.
But
So
thanks so much for having
yeah,
me here, Trevor.
thank you for coming. I hope that it. I know you're pretty busy. It's been a great chance to have you on our channel. So, firstly, let's get to know yourself for our audience who will be watching this. I think a lot of your friends and our all the alumni, they will be looking forward to it. I've talked with a couple of them. So let's start with your background and how was your childhood and stuff.
Sure, I don't know where to start. My name is Rocky. I'm from Hong Kong, and I grew up in both mainland China and also Hong Kong as well. I spent a little bit of time overseas in the UK. Um, and entrepreneurship has always been like something I've been sort of fascinated about. Like back in middle school, I used to ride my bike to school every day, and the way I made money back then was, I'd stop at the local supermarket and then fill my bag with snacks and drinks and stuff. Like let's say like a can of Coke was like 250. I'd go to school and then sell that during recess for like five. So you make a nice profit, right? So I did that for a little while, but then eventually the teachers found out. So I stopped doing that and then started fixing phones and stuff for people. Just, and then like designing shirts and all sorts of things, and like doing little businesses and stuff. And so it's always been like a little bit of a hobby of mine. And quite recently, so like I'm currently like an undergraduate at HKUST in Hong Kong. So that's the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, for the viewers who are not so familiar. It's a great uni, and they gave me the opportunity to come to Beijing this past semester to do an exchange at a university here. And so I had a great time. And during the summer, I was going to go back to home. I was going to go back home, back to Hong Kong. But then on this one interesting dinner, which I wasn't supposed to go to. That's where I bumped into Trevor, and the rest is history because it was through that dinner that I got to know about SGA. And I went to that first sort of introductory dinner here where my office is now actually. We had a little pizza party where I learned a little bit more about SGA and about their, wonderful mentor, Roderick, or as we call him in Chinese, Kehan. Um, and yeah, and so he gave us like during this SGA boot camp, we had a bunch of lectures and stuff, and the rest is history.
Yeah, thanks so much. So that's an amazing. I think it's a coincidence that that was the first time I was in Beijing, and I was also looking forward to meet people like you. Like we are trying to get because that was the first ever cohort or is SGM, and like Roderick and we were trying to build up a layout of the future entrepreneurs because as we mentioned in China, as we are in currently right now, it's kind of like difficult for international students, even like Chinese students in different universities. So that was the first motive to start SGS Startup Academy, but uh, that one is putting it aside, meeting you, and then I think you were planning to go back to Hong Kong as as you mentioned, and then
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
and somehow I was like texting you like and Gustavo was also texting you like, hey,
Yeah.
why don't you apply to SGA and get in, and then yeah, got in, and that was an amazing ride. But so can you like walk us through shortly like how was the SG experience to you? And because I think you also had the idea of like starting a startup before joining SG, but how did it shape you to become where you are today right now?
Yeah, so I've always been itching to do something like build a new startup. The previous one I built was it was less techy. I used to like was really into rock climbing back then, and so we came up with a startup where we designed Hong Kong's first like liquid chalk brand. And liquid chalk is something that climbers use to make sure that their hands are not sweaty, and that helps them with climbing. But that was like 2 or 3 years ago. That was like the summer before I started university, and so like this year I'm now like a third year. I was a third year student, well, finishing my third year when I was here in Beijing. And when I came across SGA, I was really intrigued because I was like, okay, I want to learn a little bit more about entrepreneurship. And I'd also heard about Miracle Plus, which apparently is China's version of Y Combinator. And so that was like that, like I hadn't heard of Miracle Plus until I came to Beijing. And so that really intrigued me. Like I've always been following YC, watching their startup school videos. And this time, we had this wonderful course mentor. And I was like, okay, I could probably learn a thing or two. And so I decided to stay over the summer to take the course every Saturday. And I think we had maybe like 7 or 8 lectures, and where we covered a little bit of everything. Like, for example, like, how do you build a co-founding team? How do you go out there and build your minimum viable product, the MVP as we call it? How do you get to product market fit? Like, how do you tell if your product's successful or not? And for example, things like how to fundraise. And so these are all like really important topics, which I think, everybody who's running a business or building a startup needs to know about. And so I was like, yeah, hands down. And so I went through that experience. Um, but I think one of the most great aspects of SGA is like how diverse it is. It's like such an international cohort. I was looking at
Yes.
the website the other day, and there was this photo which we took during the first class, and I remember counting that day. I think we had people from I forgot if it was like like 17 or like a
Yeah, it
bunch
was
of
like
different countries. I was like,
we were able to accept like 27 students from 21 different countries at first, but then
yeah,
some had to go back to their country because it was like summer
yeah,
vacation. So at last we had
yeah,
17 people from 17 different countries. So
sure.
it was a lot diverse. Yeah. Yeah. So
It's very
one
diverse.
of
Like
the
very, very rarely do you have
yeah.
such a diverse cohort. Yeah,
Yeah, it's an amazing, and we were really really proud to have those people who were not only
yeah,
focusing on their own stuff, but are also really supportive and like supporting our vision and like trying to do something by themselves, even though a lot of them didn't even have any idea, or like they were just there to learn. So that was really amazing. So let's move on to like you building Terracotta. So we had an incubation activity, as you remember, that we had a day where you come in the
yeah.
morning and you work till like evening, and you build out your product, your idea, and then present it to the mentor. So how was that idea? Did you come up with the Terracotta idea before, or how that incubation activity shaped your way of thinking about Terracotta?
Sorry, do you mind repeating the question? The internet kind of went out for a second.
Yeah. So you at first presented Terracotta, I think, in the incubation day activity at the end of that incubation activity. So how did you come up with this idea and moved into that direction, eventually founding Terracotta?
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually came up with the idea during SGA. It's like I knew that I always wanted to do something in the field of cybersecurity. And during SGA, I think it was like week 3 or week 4, and our mentor, Kohan, he gave us an assignment where we basically had to pitch him an idea. And I actually missed the second or third week class because I was in Shanghai. I was busy we took 750 like middle school students from Hong Kong to Shanghai. So I spent a week
Oh wow.
there. And on one night, it was like a late night. We finished that day's activities, and I sat down with this other staff who was helping looking after the kids, and she happened to be like an insurance broker. And I was telling her about cybersecurity and stuff, and she was like, "Oh, I recently had a deal to do with cyber insurance." And this is something that I'd heard of before. And the basic idea for people who are not familiar, and this is a very new product. So, if, let's say your company gets hacked, if you have a cyber insurance policy, then the insurance company can, pay out. Let's say if you get hit by a ransomware attack or something like that. And so this is like a really new product, and I did a little bit of research, and it turns out that it's like a booming market in the US and the EU as well. And so I was like, and being a Hong Konger, I was like, okay, well, Hong Kong is it's like it's one of the insurance centers of all of Asia. It's one of the biggest exports in Hong Kong as well, I believe. And so I was like, okay, let's maybe we can build something with cyber insurance. And so I and keep in mind I knew nothing about insurance at that point, so I was basically starting from zero. And so I pitched that idea to Kahan during the internal product day in preparation for demo day, and and they thought it was is an okay idea. And so I kept on pursuing that, and that's what I eventually was able to present during demo day. Oh, another thing about SJ, which is really cool, is like they gave us an opportunity to present our idea at High Cool, which is like this great tech conference in Beijing. Um, and so yeah, that was all that. And that's also the idea which I used to apply for Miracle Plus. And deadline was like something like mid-August. So this is like right after high school. And so I applied, and the next thing you know, a few days later, I got fortunate enough to get an interview invite and eventually made it into the program, which started in September, which is why I quit school this year to build it full time.
That's amazing. A lot of the time, that thing that I always think about, that quote from Mark Twain where he said that secret of getting ahead is just getting started. So I think also the how we did in the SG is like it was really fast paced. It was just once a week, Saturday, and you had to like do those
Yeah.
things. You had to present in order to be in the class. So I think as you mentioned that you didn't have any idea of insurance that sector, but now look at you. You're now building like your I think now your company is valued because you got $300,000 investment. So it's like now valued at $4.29 million. So it's so amazing that being a student and to pursue that entrepreneurship full time, it took also a gap year. So can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to like quit school and then pursue your entrepreneurship journey full time?
Well, I think mainly because it's quite difficult to do two things at once, like school and building a startup. Um, and there's enough to think about as it is building a startup. So trying to finish a degree while doing that just isn't really feasible. So that's why I decided to take a year off, and so I could, clear my mind and focus on one thing and one thing only.
So, as you were studying, I think, computer science and finance in Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and so a lot of the
Hmm.
times, students like my friends in university and also in other universities, what they have complaints about, what you already mentioned, that maintaining these things together is really hard. But how can they like start their idea to implement into like real world? How can they get started? What do you have in your mind that you can give some advice to those students who are thinking about startups, who have ideas but not being able to go out and then try new different things?
I think university is one of the best times to actually do something like this because at every university, you always have a bunch of resources at your disposal. You have talent, you have possibly some funding from the university. You have professors, which you can just, literally walk into their office and knock on the door, just ask them about anything. So you have like this great concentration of resources, which you can actually use to build a startup, and let alone all the research and technology that's, being developed at the university. Like one idea would be to just go to university, figure out what's being researched, and think of a way to commercialize that. Um, but of course, I know that a lot of students have their own ideas. They want to try some things out, and that's great. Ideas are fantastic. Um, one of my bigger regrets, like when I was like earlier years in the university, was not executing more on those ideas. And if you don't execute on them, you don't really know how they're going to turn out. But if you do, you'll gain a lot of experience, like whether or not you're successful. It could be a failure, it could be a success. Either way, it's a win because you gain experience. So my biggest piece of advice is like if you have an idea, doesn't matter. Like you could be in school or you could be, you could be on like winter break, Sahan is right now. It's just like, he's building out this YouTube channel. Like that's freaking amazing, right? So if you have an idea, go out there and execute it. You don't have to have a lot of money. Just there's always a possibility of building, some like mini version of it to test if the idea works. No, like let's say you want to start like a I don't know, like a one of my friends at university, he's from India, and he's thinking of doing a business of selling, cooked meals for some of his other Indian friends because there were like a really lack of um, sort of similar food options. And he just started cooking in his kitchen and, selling that to his friends and stuff. And that's like, so it doesn't take that much to start a business. It could be slightly in a gray area. I don't know if you're really supposed to be cooking indoors, but who cares? Just go out there and do it. Like all the big tech companies, started in like somebody's garage or whatever. It's like it's part of the spirit.
Yeah.
When I was building my previous startup, I was making liquid chalk. I was doing that in my kitchen, and my mom was furious because like there were like a bunch of chemicals, a bunch of powder, and this was like the kitchen where food is being made, and so like, and I can understand why she was so pissed because like the powder was everywhere. But it's just like things like that. It's fun, and it makes for a great story to tell. Like many years later down the road. So if you have an idea, just whatever you got to do, go out there and do it.
I love that. And that reminds me of like having the quote, like ideas doesn't matter until you execute. So no matter what you have, is just if you just execute, like you can imagine your idea of like having that talking with that insurance broker and like turning it into a startup. I mean, it's like you took the initiative to go forward, and now here you are. And one thing you mentioned here is that about parents. So a lot of the times, I think it's one of the top concern of students, like, or if I pursue like entrepreneurship beside my studies at first, trying out different things, what if it hampers my studies, and what if my parents doesn't support it? So now you are like a full-time entrepreneur. So how does your parent feel about that? And what was the conversation when you're trying out different things with your parents? And how did it work out for you?
I feel like I should be interviewing you about this question.
No, no, no. I think as I started this channel for a lot of people, so I think I will talk about those, but I want to hear from your side now.
Um, I think I'm quite lucky in that my parents are quite supportive. When I like my dad, he's a bit of a businessman himself, so like I have his support. And on my mom's side, she's a little bit more conservative, uh, but after hearing about Miracle Plus, I sort of explained, like the investments and also, uh, and like the people behind Miracle Plus. It was like, okay, like go do your thing, and they trust me. Um, if I was maybe like 10 years or 5 years younger, maybe not, but like I feel like I'm at that stage where they trust me a little bit more to, execute now. So I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for them. But definitely, you guys gotta, go check out Sahan's story when he releases that. Trevor's got like a great
Thank
story
you.
with
We'll
his
be
with his
waiting for
parents and
that.
stuff.
Yeah.
Trevor,
So
Trevor, Trevor has fought really hard to come to China and to pursue his dreams and studies.
thanks so much. That's history for now. We're gonna talk about, but from your side, that yeah, as you mentioned, the university is one of the best time to work out and be an entrepreneur, pursue that dream, and also another thing is like finding a co-founder. So now I think you have a
Yeah.
co-founder who's also from your same university. So how can you tell us the process of like finding your co-founder, and what qualities did you look for as your co-founder?
I actually met him on exchange here in Beijing, and it was during the summer as well. And we sort of had a mutual friend, and he introduced me to my current co-founder. His name is Mitch, and we we just kind of started getting to know each other by running. And I really wanted to start it. And the reason why I started running this summer was because I felt like a long-standing problem with me is um like I wanted to work on my persistence because I know that building a startup, it's not like something that you do overnight. It's not like Rome wasn't built in a day. And so same with a startup. It's going to take months and years for you to get to, any meaningful progress, unless you're really lucky. And and so I think that yeah, through running, I kind of got to know him. He's done like a couple of marathons, and that's something like I'm trying to aspire to work towards. I actually ran a 15K last night in -2 freezing
Wow.
weather. It was freezing. It was horrible. Um, but I do this not because I like running per se. It is kind of gruel because you're there, you're persisting for like a couple of hours, but then the moment you get to your destination, and like you just feel this like gush, this like amazing sensation because you look back at like what you've achieved, and it's just a great it's great like being able to see what you can achieve after persisting. And so yeah, so I met my co-founder through running, and we run pretty consistently, like at least once or twice a week together. I train, every day personally, and
Awesome.
and yeah, so we met through running, and he actually came and watched me present on demo day on for SGA, and when I figured out that I got into Miracle Plus, I was like, "Do you want to join?" And he was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it!" And we're trying to build
Awesome.
this out full time now.
Recently, I also started running, and I think it's a really great way to build persistence. And then I'm gonna try out for varsity team. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm trying out for my
Sure,
university varsity team in January. So
sure,
yeah, it's not that
exciting.
running is like you love running because it's need a lot of like effort, but also it helps you to build up mentally. So I really appreciate runners a lot. So now let's move on to your like Terracotta, because at first you started with in cyber insurance for SMEs, and I think now you also include a lot of AI things. As I saw your roadshow day of Miracle Plus. So can
Yeah.
you walk us through that, like securing your investment and what made you stand out among all of these applications? I think it was like 5,000 applications, and I think only 50 or 60 got investment, something like that. So can you tell us more about how that worked out?
So Miracle Plus in YC tradition, they take applications twice per year, once in the fall, once in the spring. Although YC, I think they're changing into 4 batches per year now. But anyways, so yeah, you apply, you fill out this form, and if you get through that first round, then the partners will send out an interview invite. And so that's when you go in for like a 10-minute interview. And the 10 minutes they go by so quickly. And it's pretty intense. It's an intensive 10 minutes because they just do like ultra rapid fire, like a bunch of questions at you. Um, and they ask you about yeah, about your startup, about your team, etc. And you have to be able to and yeah, that's where you kind of showcase your team. And I think that's, important part of their judgment process. And, once you go through that, then there's a couple of rounds of vetting, which they do. And that narrows the candidate list down from, like you said, from like 5 or 6,000 down to about, I think we had 60 teams this batch. Okay. And so, yeah, I applied beginning of August, and then a couple of days before university started. So like my semester was supposed to start on September 1st or something. And I think I got a call from Miracle Plus on August the 30th. So it was like 2 days before school started. And I was sitting in the car in the back of a taxi. My dad was next to me, and I got the call, and I was just I was so excited. I
The
was
whole
really excited.
life's
My dad
trajectory
was
changed, I think, at that moment. You were
I
like,
know, I know, I know. Yeah, that's what I said in my WeChat moment. I was like, I know the specific time where I got that call, and I was like, I knew life was going to be a little bit different. And these 3 months have been incredible. And so like the way Miracle Plus works is that like this incubation program is that, besides getting the investment is one thing, but I think more importantly, there's this great community of other founders. Like I said, you're going through this with 59 other founding teams, and every team, they're so passionate, they have their own ideas, and they're also talented. Like um, lots of them are from, some of the best universities around the world, and to see the way they think and like some of their past achievements, it's like really inspirational. And it's like peer pressure, but in a good way, and it really forces you to like you got to up your game and like learn as quickly as possible. And so during those 3 months, every week you have a meeting with your partner. You get assigned one of the four found partners from Miracle Plus, where you have an office hour session, and that's when you've got like 20 minutes of sort of one-to-one conversation with the partners to understand, how so that they can understand how you're doing. You can ask them questions for anything that you don't understand if you have any questions. And so, they're all yours, 20 minutes. And actually reminds me of like a little anecdote. There was this other team who had Lu Qi assigned as their founder. So Lu Qi is or Qi as we
founder and
call him,
CEO.
he's the
Yeah.
founding partner of Miracle Plus, and one of the founding teams made the most out of their office hours. And what they did was they're trying to recruit some of the best talent. And you know how they did it? Because they had a weekly office hours with Wuxi, what they did was like they would invite like a new team member, which they were trying to convince to join the team, to go to the office hours and have go through that 20 minutes conversation with Wuxi. And like bear in mind, this is like he's an amazing and very accomplished individual. He used to be CEO of Baidu. I think he's very senior as well at Microsoft
He was the
and at
chairman of
Yahoo as
Yahoo
well.
also. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when you have somebody like as much of a legend as him in the same room, like that team member who's in that meeting, like, oh wow, I'd love to join this team. And so you just got like these wonderful resources at your disposal. So, you've got office hours and sometimes you have weekly dinners with other founders. And another great thing is like we have these knowledge sharing sessions. Like sometimes Lucy will do like a sharing on what's the latest and biggest and the hittest with LLMs. Sometimes they'll invite some of the founders and CEOs of some of the top LLM companies over to do a closed door sharing, which only sort of Miracle Plus teams can join in and listen to. And so you learn a lot, and everybody's they're going full speed ahead, and they're trying to work towards demo day, which was not too long ago. It was about less than 3 weeks ago, and this is the day. It's kind of like Judgment Day. This is like the whole 3 months of incubation. Like this is the day. This is the day you've been preparing for, and it's when they invite over 1,000 investors from all over China, some of the top investors, to come to one place in this big arena or
Mm.
big room. And you've got this
Yeah.
big screen, so every
I've lived
team
the
gets to go up on
experience.
stage. Exactly. So
Yeah.
every stage gets to go up on there and gets to pitch their idea for 2 minutes, and it's like a great opportunity for you to showcase and generate a little bit of exposure, and to hopefully inspire some more investors to um, learn more about your startup. And perhaps if you're at the stage where you've hit product market fit and you want to scale it, the investors are there to help you. So it's this 3 month intense and impressive program, which I think is a tremendous experience.
Yeah, I know. I have done during the summer when I was in Beijing. Apart from building SG at that time, I was also doing internship in Miracle Plus, and people there are so motivated there. So I was able to like closely work with Kahan. I mean, like I'm so amazed to see how he works. Like I think he barely sleeps. I think 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours every night, and that's the same thing we tried to implement in also SG. Like you mentioned, like having office hour with Luchi, like it gives you an amazing perspective of how you should move with your startup. In our SG, we also have like office hours with Kohan, as you also know, that 20 minutes office hours. So I think it's a great opportunity for all the people if someone gets into Miracle Plus or applies. So I'm thinking about like later in this channel, I would try to find these resources and upload these videos where like students can apply for funding because Miracle Plus it's like the Y Combinator of China, obviously, and it's an amazing opportunity for all the students. But so now you have like started Terracotta. Now you're in your office. So what changes that you made in Terracotta that is like different what you initially thought? What is the direction now that you're going through?
In terms of our startup.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've pivoted slightly. So we were still working on that cyber insurance idea for the first half of the incubation camp. And I'd spoken to a lot of people in the insurance industry. Um, and bearing in mind, like I knew nobody in insurance, so this was like all on LinkedIn. I was just sending out a bunch of cold messages to different people. And surprisingly, some of them got back to me. So I think I must have sent out maybe 30 or 40 like messages, and I think about 20 or 30% were willing to chat. And sometimes, we chatted for half an hour or more. And so that was like a really good way of understanding how the insurance industry works, but like specifically with cyber insurance. So, I spoke to brokers, I spoke to actual insurers and underwriters to understand how the process works. And then eventually we came up with a like little product idea. But then I realized that the market is still a bit early for Hong Kong. And so we decided to pivot away from that idea. and which was a little bit awkward because so this is like where the incubation camp was a bit tricky for us because halfway through the incubation camp there's this thing called the internal demo day, and that's where you get sort of in front of everybody and do like a mock pitch, kind of like to prepare and get a feel for what the actual demo day is like. And since we were going to pivot, it doesn't make sense for us to talk about the insurance. And that was a crazy week for us. Me and my co-founder, we were just, sitting on a table. We were trying to brainstorm like what we can do. Like we were thinking like, should we switch and do like a language startup? And but eventually, like during our office hours, like the partner convinced us to sort of stick to security and stuff. And so, we were trying to think about what we can do, like what's going to be changing in the future. And we started looking about AI and stuff. And there's agents, uh, like AI agents, which is this wonderful new technology. Or I mean, well, it's based on large language models. But like the great thing about AI is that, it has the ability to think, it has the ability to understand things, and it can also execute on that as well. And so we had this idea, like, what if we could sort of revolutionize security, cybersecurity, to make companies more secure, if we could develop like an intelligent AI agent that protects the company. So like right now, what you have to do is you have to go out there, you have to hire a security engineer, you have to hire, IT people who comes in and configures your systems or monitors your systems for hackers and stuff. And so we were thinking like a lot of this stuff is actually quite menial work, which can potentially be automated. And so that really got us thinking. And that's what we're working towards now. We're sort of coding day and night to try and validate
Awesome. That
this.
that that's the life we live for, like having a vision and working towards that. So everyone who's listening, if you want to know more about Terracotta and what direction they're moving in, I would put the links in the description or comments so that you can know more about Terracotta and what they're doing. I think they're gonna. I have a strong belief that it's gonna turn out to be an amazing, amazing change in the world in the cybersecurity aspect, probably. But the thing is, like now that you are like a CEO, and I don't know if you have included more team members in your team. So, what's been the most surprising aspect of leading a startup? Like now you're like a student entrepreneur with now pursuing full time. So, what was the most amazing aspect?
Of what being a student entrepreneur.
Yes. Because you're such a young age now, so a lot of mentorship that you're getting from the partners and also, but from your perspective, how your life was like 6 months ago, how you thought now, how you think as a CEO, as the founder of the company. So how does that make you feel like, and how you think differently now?
I think my perspective has changed quite a bit since starting on this journey. I think I realized that uh, there's a lot out there that's happening and a lot of things that we need to learn. And you're learning every day constantly. The only constant is change, really. And so you really have to stay on top of your game. And but I think that's one of the best things about doing this is that I feel like I've gotten back to a point where I'm standing at the front of technology trends and like watching what's happening because and I felt like I was doing this when I was quite young as well. Like for example, like like this was back in it was like maybe like iPhone 5, like that time was like 10 years ago, I think. And like I knew every Apple product off the top of my head, back to back, all the specs, like all the ins and outs, all the features, like and just like keeping up with the latest tech trends. I was all about that. But then I think, as I grew up a little bit older, I kind of lost that. I was just kind of, getting embroiled with sort of studies and stuff. And so I stopped keeping as close of an eye. But then like this over the past few months, like starting from SGA, I feel like I got back to that stage where I'm learning and I'm actually not that I wasn't curious about things before, but like now I'm curious and I'm acting on that. Like I'm going out there and reading, doing lots of reading and trying new things. Um, and that's what makes me really happy is like you're working with the latest stuff out there. And that's really
Yeah.
exciting. And like what I was talking about AI agents and stuff, like there's so much potential. Like this is one of the biggest moments in human history. It's like, you've got the agricultural revolution, you've got the industrial revolution, you've got the, like, we've just gone through the information era, and now we're going to enter the true era of artificial intelligence, where you can imagine, you're just going about your daily life, but you can sort of offload all the menial tasks, like all the things that you don't want to do, like let let like an autonomous agent take care of that. And so that way you can free up your time and really focus on, what's important. And I think that's so exciting.
I can
To
see you. I
to be
think
to
you're wearing I think Meta Ray-Ban glass. Like you are the
Yes, I
technology.
am. I am.
So that's guys, that's what it looks like to be in the technology era. And so I'm really proud of you. So now, as you mentioned, you're still focusing on the cybersecurity in the security
Mhm.
industry. So what do you see the biggest cybersecurity like threats like that like the SMEs are facing, or like the industry that you're focusing on, and how does Terracotta differentiates itself from the other cybersecurity market competitors?
Yeah, sure. So, like, traditional SMEs, first of all, they don't have the resources, they don't have the time and money to put into security. They're all, worried about, how can I land my next deal? How can I keep myself alive? Um, And so that makes them a big target actually for hackers. And if hackers they decide to attack you, it's really not that hard. It could be as simple as, a phishing email and deploying some ransomware. And so what they'll do is like, they could, steal your information and sell it somewhere else. Or they could do is also, encrypt all your computers and ask you for a ransom. And that's one way to go out of business pretty quickly. But to protect yourself from that, you have to have IT, expertise. You need to have, be careful when you're clicking links and stuff. But something inevitably happens. And so what companies really need is like a dedicated security team, or like at least somebody to, look after the security. But like I said, they can't really afford to hire somebody like that. And so one of the traditional solutions on the market was to, hire like a third party, sort of like outsource security. But that's really expensive. And it's usually only the big companies that can afford to do that. And so we were thinking like with AI agents, we can democratize, we can take this capability and offer it to all the small and medium businesses out there, um, bringing outsourced security to them. And the way we do it is by automating it. So we don't have to hire as many humans to do it. We can let autonomous agents handle the bulk majority of the work. And that is the future that we really believe in.
That's awesome. So adding on to that, so how do you see like Terracotta in 5 years? And like, do you plan to get back to your studies again, or you want to pursue this career for full time in the future?
In 5 years, honestly, I have no clue. I think like every month is different. So it's hard to say five
Yeah,
years. But hopefully in 5 years we'll be making some pretty meaningful progress and helping more businesses stay secure. That's the ultimate goal. Um, so let's hope that we're closer to that goal then. And as for my studies, I think I'll most likely I might try and finish my degree, doing it part-time. I might have to skip a few
yeah.
classes here
Because
and
I
there,
think
but
you already
I'll
finished
try
your
and
third year, right?
yes. I
Yeah,
still
so you only
technically have
have
two
1 year
years
left.
to go.
Yeah.
I have two actually. I'm doing a dual degree, and so that
Oh,
takes 5 years. So I'm gonna have to tr see how to juggle that, but we'll give it a try.
that's awesome. So, so there's like a current market trend of AI that you already mentioned, and you are also trying to integrate all of those AI agents into your startup. So how do you see like, do you plan to like make a long-term impact? Because what I saw from your pitch day and Miracle Plus that you have like a vision of like being a worldwide. So how do you plan to make an impact in the specifically in the cybersecurity industry, or do you have any other plans on that?
Um, well, like I said, we wanted to bring this. We really look forward to bringing this capability to more small businesses so that they're better protected from hackers out there. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a so now we can move on to like giving some final advices to people who are watching. I think most of them would be students like you and me, and like I've seen a bunch of my friends who have amazing, amazing ideas, but I think they don't have that leap of faith that if they try it out, it might not work and they might fail in both for studies and in their entrepreneurship career. So what advice would you give to the students who are now looking forward, who are watching you now? So, and how can they learn from your setbacks, and what advice in general would you give to them?
Yeah, so I think that's a problem that everybody will eventually face. Um, and if I were to give any advice, um, I would say that like there's this book which I read, many years ago, and there's this one chapter which I remember, and the chapter is titled "Nobody Cares What Your Hair Looks Like."
That's interesting.
And if I, yeah, and so like that's something that, like sometimes like when I go out there, I got to do my hair and stuff. And, you might have a bad hair day. You might go out there and think like, oh, I've got a bad hair day. Like people are going to look at me and like think I look funny. But in reality, nobody actually cares. And so like, how does this relate to, entrepreneurship and stuff? It's like failing is pretty much a given. You're going to fail until you succeed. And so, all the failures are going to add up, but you have to understand that, um, it's part of the process. And so I think knowing this, keeping this in mind that people won't, people won't judge you too much. Nobody really cares about, your failures. It's really you that sort of beats yourself down. But once you get past the realization that nobody actually cares, then you're free to go do whatever you want to do. Um, like just be bold, and then you'll be able to take that leap of faith. So trust yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So that
and
that that
embrace
one is,
and embrace and really embrace failure. Failure is great for learning, honestly, because you get to reflect and you get to think about, oh, this is what went wrong, so this I'm going to try this. And you keep trying A, B, C, and D, and once you at one point you're going to exhaust some of the options, and then you're going to hit gold. You're going to be like, oh, I found something, and then you got to keep going in that
mhm,
direction, and then
yeah.
you'll be there.
Yeah. So in one word, is like you have to see failure as like the beginning and the middle, but it's never entertain it as the end, because there's like no end to failures. As much as you can fail, I think as much all of the successful people, they would always talk about like being like failing in things, but it's not like you don't try and you just without trying you fail. It's like you try your best, and if it doesn't work out, you pivot. So I think startups, as you mentioned, it's mostly about pivoting, like which way you're going, pivoting at the right time, because the initial idea that you have, that might not be the most incredible idea out there, but most of the startups that we see nowadays who turned out to be big companies, I think they pivoted, I mean, like thousand millions times. So yeah, that's amazing advice from your side. So like what other like books or resources that like significantly helped you to think about entrepreneurship and move into the direction? Do you have any recommendations for that?
There's a couple of books which you can read, which was actually some of the homework which we were assigned during SGA. This, like 0 to 1, classic books like that. Um, the YC Startup School videos are also a great resource on YouTube. They're completely free, very informative. I think they recently released a video that's titled that's specifically about for students, like how can you make the most out of your student years. So I would definitely check that out. Um, But on a personal note, I don't think there's so much like a book or anything. It's really
Yeah.
like your attitude to ideas and work. The fundamental thing is having ideas and going and executing on them. If this is the one takeaway, if this is the one thing that you can do, then you'll be golden. Like I don't think any other book can really substitute for that.
Yeah.
It's just executing on those ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about like mindset. Like all those books that are out there, that's not gonna directly say, okay, you have this idea and you do these and this step. It's all gonna give you a generalized idea to build your mindset, and then you're gonna have to go out and try different things and make it work. So that reminds me of like, how do you think that your age, because you're such a young entrepreneur, like have advantages or challenges in your entrepreneurial journey?
I think being a student is quite useful because because you're not at that stage where people will treat you like somebody who's all grown up yet. Um, and so if you're a student, make the most out of that. When you're going out there and meeting people and you introduce yourself as a student, then people who are senior to you, they're more inclined to teach you things. Um, so don't waste that identity.
Yeah. So that one is like, if you could now like go back in time and start this all over again, is there anything that you would do differently that our listeners can learn from that?
Sorry, if I could start what again?
If you could start this entrepreneurial journey back again, like let's say 6 months ago, one
Uh,
or maybe years ago, when this entrepreneurial like this started, really things came to your mind, you started consuming information about that. So, what are the things or steps that you would take differently to like improve yourself or be in a better position, something like that?
it's the same thing, man. Just execute earlier.
Yeah, I
Don't
totally
don't
agree with that.
delay. Don't wait. Just go out there and do it.
Mm. So lastly, well, like everyone would want to learn about like how our listeners can, connect with you or know more about Terracotta, how they can, connect in with Terracotta. Do you have like
Sure,
any
you can follow us. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can, yeah, send me a connection request and follow our Terracotta page as well on LinkedIn. I'll send Trevor the links.
Yeah, sure. I'll put it in there. And lastly, because now we're at the very end, and I don't know when we'll be able to meet again. So now that we are moving towards like not another cohort of SGM and a lot of things that you have experienced personally. So what are the things that you would tell us to, like, these are the things that can be most beneficial to students that we can include, or uh, any recommendations for us that also the students can get some help from?
Ooh, for the next SGA cohort,
Yes.
well, get to know one another. Hear each other's stories. You'll be making a lot of friends during SGA. I know I did. A lot of friendships which have lasted quite a while actually. Um, so yeah, look forward to that, and don't forget to execute.
Yeah, I totally agree with your execution side. It's like always execute. So, Rocky, who's your role model, and who you look up to, and like every day, what gives you the motivation to move forward in your life, in your like startup journey?
Ooh, Elon Musk is a bit of a role model for me. I don't agree with everything that he says, but I really respect the way that he goes, the way that he executes, the way that he takes, something from, idea in his mind to reality. Think about all the amazing things that exist in this world because of him, uh, reusable rockets, Starlink, um, electric vehicles. Um, yeah, it's all thanks to this, one guy. It's crazy. And what keeps me motivated? Oh, I think I love learning about new things and stuff. And I think I do really want to succeed. And so a lot of personal reasons there. My parents invested quite a lot for me. And so, it's up to me to go out there and, take all their time and effort and to make a meaningful contribution to this world. And so that's what drives me.
Amazing, amazing. It's been so nice to talk with you again, Rocky. You've grown so much. You're now the glasses on and your hair looks nice. But apart from everything else, I really, really wish, I think all of the listeners who are there listening to you, they'd be very, very amazed by what you have accomplished so far. But it's not there yet. I hope you achieve a lot more. And we plan to have you on board again when our channel grows to thousands of subscribers, and then people wants to hear from Rocky again. And I hope at that time Terracotta would be something that like most of the people are using in their day-to-day life, or at least the business owners are using to solve their problems. So thank you so much for being with us, and good luck with your startup, and have a great life.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you, Trevor. I look forward to many more cohorts. At some point, it'll be like cohort, 11 and
Yeah.
12 and hundreds of cohorts.
Yeah,
Look
and it
forward
would
to
be
that.
really we are like trying to build a community, as you mentioned. Miracle Plus also has an amazing community of entrepreneurs. So we want to build that community where people like you and a lot of other international students and Chinese students, they're together building something that can be one of the best startups of the next generation. So yeah, that's what we're aspiring for. Thank you again for being with us and giving us your meaningful time. Hope to see you again. Goodbye.
Thank you, Trevor. Appreciate it. All the best. Yeah.
Yeah, all the best. Bye.